Hello, everyone, and welcome to Chapter 3, Digestion, Absorption, and Transport. Here are your learning objectives for this chapter. We'll start with a question. Answer as best as you can. So digestion breaks down food into nutrients. Same thing here. We have another question and you can answer it to the best of your ability. So the lumen is the inner space of the intestines, and you can think of it like the inside space of a garden hose. The gastrointestinal tract, or GI tract. So this is where your digestion is going to start. This is where absorption happens and transportation. So digestion actually starts in your mouth, and it starts via chewing. We start to chew our food. We have salivary glands, which release saliva into our mouth, which also have enzymes and things to help break down our food. After we chew, it gets moist from the saliva, we will swallow the food. After swallowing, it goes into your pharynx, which is a shared tube that will break off into your trachea, which breaks off into your lungs, but that's not part of your GI tract. But the pharynx also breaks into your esophagus, which is the continuation of your GI tract. Once it enters your esophagus, it will go down into the stomach, through the pyloric sphincter, to your small intestine, large intestine, rectum, anus, and out. You have sphincters throughout the GI tract, which help prevent backflow. So you have your upper and lower esophageal sphincters, which are at the top and bottom of your esophagus. You have the pyloric sphincter, which is at the bottom of the stomach, towards the opening of the stomach to the small intestine. And you have your ileocecal valve. I also want to note that your liver produces bile, which is stored in the gallbladder. So GI tract. This is a flexible muscular tube that extends from the mouth through the esophagus, stomach, small intestine, large intestine, and rectum to the anus. You may find it beneficial to know this order. Digestion. Breakdown of nutrient molecules to usable form by cells. Includes both mechanical or muscular and chemical processes. Absorption. Uptake of nutrients by the cells of the small intestine for transport into either bloodstream or lymphatic system. So digestion is the breakdown of food into nutrients, and absorption is the uptake of those nutrients for the cell to use. The process of digestion begins in the mouth. Chewing crushes your food. So this is an example of that manual breakdown or mechanical digestion. Fluids from food and salivary glands facilitate swallowing. So you have saliva that mixes with your food. It helps allow for taste and softens it for ease of swallowing. You have 5 basic taste sensations: sweet, sour, bitter, salty, and umami. Aroma, texture, and temperature will affect flavor. Swallowed food passes through the pharynx. And remember, the pharynx is the shared tube before separating into the esophagus. So after the food is in your mouth, chewed and swallowed, it enters the esophagus. You have 2 sphincter muscles that control movement. You have the upper esophageal sphincter, which lets the bolus in, and your lower esophageal sphincter, which helps move the bolus into the stomach. You have chyme, which is a semi-liquid mass. So this is after bolus moves to the stomach, it mixes with stomach juices and becomes chyme. Chyme is a semi-liquid mass of partially digested food. Your pyloric sphincter opens into the small intestine. This is when chyme is leaving the stomach and enters your small intestine to continue digestion and absorption. Now that chyme is in the small intestine, there is further breakdown of nutrients, and the majority of absorption occurs here. I'll say that again. The majority of absorption occurs in your small intestine. The common bile duct drops liquids like bile into the small intestine from the pancreas and gallbladder to help with digestion. You have 3 segments of your small intestine: the duodenum, jejunum, and ileum. The ileocecal valve is the sphincter between the small and large intestines. Food, or chyme, enters the large intestine where water gets absorbed and leaves a semi-solid waste. Waste is held in the rectum and excreted through the anus. I'll pause for a moment and see if you can answer this. The mass of chewed food is called what? The answer is bolus. So remember, in your mouth, that combination of chewed food and saliva is known as the bolus. Muscular action of digestion. There are 2 layers of muscles in the GI tract that coordinate to produce 2 actions: segmentation and peristalsis. Segmentation is the inner circular muscles contract in the small intestine. And the key word here is mix. They are mixing chyme with the digestive juices. It puts chyme in contact with absorbing cells. The other is peristalsis, and the key word here is forward. So you have outer longitudinal muscles push chyme forward. Think like when you're squeezing, like if you had a tube of toothpaste and you squeeze from the bottom and you're pushing it forward. Rate and intensity of contractions will vary, and that's based on which section of the GI tract it is and whether food is present or not. Factors that may interfere with peristalsis include stress, drugs, medicine, or illness. So here is a visual of segmentation and peristalsis. In the top row, you see it's peristalsis, and again, this is moving chyme forward, so it's squeezing and pushing everything to go in one direction. And then the second row of pictures is segmentation, and that is to mix chyme with the digestive juices and keep it in contact with absorbing cells. Three types of stomach muscle. You have circular, longitudinal, and diagonal. These muscles help mix the stomach contents together. It's not labeled on this photo, but the pyloric sphincter that controls the release of chyme into the small intestine would be down at the bottom, basically at the base of the stomach, where it would enter the small intestine. So here's a digestion question. I'll pause for a moment to see if you can answer. Answer is B. There are 3 kinds of muscle. Sphincter contractions. So they periodically open and close, and they control the pace of movement of GI tract contents. You have sphincters, including the upper and lower esophageal sphincters, pyloric, ileocecal, and anus. When the muscles contract, the passage closes. When the muscles relax, the passage opens. Sphincters control the rate of passage through the GI tract and prevent any backflow. If contents are moving too quickly or too fast, you may have diarrhea. If they are moving too slowly, you could have symptoms of constipation. Secretions of digestion. So secretions are made of enzymes and water. Enzymes are protein molecules that facilitate a chemical reaction. They can make a molecule, break a molecule apart, rearrange a molecule, etc. Function, to break down food to small units that can be absorbed. 5 organs or glands produce secretion. You have salivary glands, stomach, pancreas, liver, and small intestine. Typically, a word ending in ACE or ASE denotes an enzyme, for example, lipase or amylase, etc. Saliva and gastric juice. Saliva moistens food for easy passage. It has a protective role, including protecting the teeth, lining of your stomach, esophagus, and stomach. It also initiates carbohydrate digestion. So this is amylase in your mouth, in your saliva, that starts that chemical breakdown in your mouth. Gastric juice acts primarily in protein digestion. It's a mixture of water, enzymes, and hydrochloric acid. So you can recall how carbohydrate digestion stops in the stomach from the acidity of the hydrochloric acid. So the primary focus is on protein. Mucus protects stomach wall cells from acid. Stomach acid would damage the stomach without mucus protecting it. The acidic nature prevents bacteria growth and kills most bacteria that enters with the food that you eat. When stomach acid reflux backs up into the esophagus, that's when you get symptoms of heartburn. Acidity is measured in pH units. So pH measures the acidity versus the alkalinity. The salivary glands. So this diagram just kind of gives you a visual of where they are. They secrete enzyme-rich saliva into the mouth, and this starts digestion in combination with chewing. Because food is only in the mouth for a short amount of time, little overall digestion occurs. Pancreatic juice and intestinal enzymes. Pancreas releases digestive juices containing enzymes that help digest all 3 macronutrients: carbohydrates, protein, and fat. These are released via ducts into the duodenum. These juices help aid digestion, and also cells of the intestinal wall carry digestive enzymes. Contains sodium bicarbonate, which neutralizes acidic chyme. Sodium bicarbonate is basic or alkaline, which neutralizes the previously acidic chyme. Enzymes from the intestine and pancreas work best in this environment. Bile is produced by the liver, and it is stored in the gallbladder and released into the duodenum. It acts as an emulsifier. So bile helps aid in fat digestion, not by actually breaking it down, but by helping enzymes act on it. Because as an emulsifier, bile helps disperse fat into watery solutions, allowing enzymes access. Here is a succinct summary chart of the digestive secretions and what they do. Moving from digestion to absorption. The small intestine. The majority of absorption occurs here. It can be about 10 feet long and has a large surface area. Per the text, the surface area is that of about 1.5 bowling lanes. The increased surface area is there because we have villi as well as microvilli, and that increases the overall surface area. Absorption techniques include simple diffusion, facilitated diffusion, and active transport. So simple diffusion, some nutrients cross intestinal cells freely, like water and small lipids. Facilitated diffusion, some nutrients need a specific carrier to cross a cell membrane. And active transport, some nutrients require energy to move across the concentration gradient. So simple diffusion, we're thinking things move very freely. Facilitated diffusion specifically needs a carrier, and active transport requires energy. Here is a visual for the absorption of nutrients. Again, the first picture on the left, looking at simple diffusion, some nutrients, such as water and small lipids, are absorbed by simple diffusion. They cross into intestinal cells freely, so they don't need a carrier and they do not require energy either. Facilitated transport does need a carrier. So some nutrients are absorbed by facilitated transport. They need a specific carrier to transport them from one side of the cell membrane to the other. Alternatively, facilitated transport may occur when the carrier changes the cell membrane in such a way that the nutrient can pass through. And lastly, you have active transport. And active transport is when nutrients require energy. They require energy to be moved across the membrane. Anatomy of the absorptive system. Villi are finger-like projections from folds of the small intestine. Microvilli are tiny hair-like projections on each villus that can trap nutrients and transport them into cells. So we have villi, and on top of our villi, we have microvilli. And because those finger-like projections increase surface area, that's how we are able to absorb. We have more area to work with. There are also crypts, which are tubular glands that lie between intestinal villi and secrete intestinal juices. And then we have goblet cells, and those are cells of the GI tract that secrete mucus. Preparing nutrients for transport. Absorption occurs in one of two ways, via the bloodstream or lymphatic system. Water-soluble nutrients and small fat products travel mostly through your bloodstream and then go to your liver. Because blood is mostly water, your water-soluble nutrients will go there, and it can also contain other things like carbohydrates, like monosaccharides, small fats like glycerol and short or medium-chain triglycerides, amino acids, and your water-soluble vitamins, vitamins B and C. Large fat products and fat-soluble vitamins will go through your lymphatic system and then enter your bloodstream. These fat products are insoluble in water, so they do not prefer to travel through your bloodstream. Therefore, they use the lymphatic system. Fat-soluble vitamins and larger fats cluster together with proteins and form chylomicrons. Chylomicrons carry fats through the lymphatic system until it enters the bloodstream closer to the heart. Nutrients traveling through the lymphatic system bypass the liver at first. Examples of large fats include long-chain fatty acids, triglycerides, cholesterols, phospholipids, and your fat-soluble vitamins, vitamin A, D, E, and K. The circulatory systems. You have the vascular or blood circulatory system. It's a closed system of vessels, and the heart is the pump. Bloodstream. Delivers oxygen and nutrients. Oxygen comes from the lungs. Nutrients come from your digestive system. It also removes carbon dioxide and waste. Blood leaving the digestive system goes to the liver before the heart, then leaves the liver through the hepatic portal vein and goes to the heart. This is an image from your text that you can find on page 80. Basically, blood that leaves the digestive system goes to the liver first, then back to the heart. The liver prepares carbohydrates, protein, and fat for the body and detoxes substances that might be harmful. The lymphatic system. So moving from circulatory system to lymphatic. This is a one-way route for fluid from tissues to enter the bloodstream. There is no pump regulation. Contents of the lymph system move when the body moves. So if you're exercising and you're running and your calves are moving, that helps move through the lymphatic system. You also have smooth muscle movement, when you're not controlling that, for example, breathing. Your lungs are expanding and contracting. That smooth muscle movement also helps move fluids through your lymphatic system. It also collects fluids. So fluids collect in the thoracic duct behind the heart, which opens up into the subclavian vein where lymph enters the bloodstream. Nutrients in lymphatic vessels bypass liver at first. Once these nutrients enter the bloodstream, cells can use them. Here's a quick question for you if you'd like to pause it and see if you could answer. Microbes in the GI tract are influenced by prebiotics and probiotics, thus by one's diet. Your gut microbiome has about 100 trillion microbes. Think bacteria, viruses, fungi, etc. GI microbes can help promote health. Non-obese people tend to have a more diverse microbe composition than obese people. Changes in microbiota composition and activity is associated with IBS and obesity. Factors influencing GI bacteria: you have prebiotics, which encourage microbial growth, and you have probiotics, which are live microbes. Diet heavily influences the microbiome. Prebiotics you can think of as like the food for our GI bacteria, usually associated with fibers or food we cannot break down. Probiotics, again, are live microbes. Some potential sources include things like yogurt, kimchi, sauerkraut, and dark chocolate. As far as vitamin production, bacteria in the GI tract produce vitamins like biotin, folate, riboflavin, thiamine, B6 and B12, as well as vitamin K. Benefits of a healthy microbiome. So these include reduce GI disease and inflammation, regulate appetite and satiety, weight maintenance, and an improved immune system. So what keeps your digestive system working well? You need good, healthy blood supply, lifestyle factors like adequate sleep, exercise, and mental state, be it your stress, nerves, you want to make sure that those are under control. The type of food you consume, so you want to make sure you're including plenty of fruits and vegetables and whole grains. Remember to get a variety of foods from and within food groups. And you can think about what we talked about in chapter 2, so making sure balance, moderation, adequacy, and variety, making sure those considerations are being considered when making food choices. So I kept this section as I know many of the students in this class are nursing students or would like to be nurses someday. These are just some common digestive problems or issues you might be seeing in your own life or in the health field. So first is GERD, or gastroesophageal reflux and indigestion. So reflux is the backflow of stomach acid into the esophagus. So reflux is also commonly known as heartburn. Causes can include things like eating or drinking too much, laying down after eating, or smoking. As far as prevention, you could eat less at one time, eat more slowly, chew your foods more thoroughly, just kind of taking your time with your meals. Indigestion causes can include if you overeat or eat too quickly, you may feel pain or taste stomach acid. As far as medications, usually over-the-counter medications can provide relief for indigestion. The overuse of over-the-counter medication for indigestion can cause damage to the esophagus, known as Barrett's esophagus. So Barrett's esophagus is when the esophageal tissue becomes more like intestinal lining. Symptoms are similar to GERD, and this diagnosis is most common in people with a long history of GERD. Ulcers. Peptic ulcers, those can be lesions or sores. So you have gastric ulcers, lesions of the stomach lining, and duodenal ulcers, which are lesions of the duodenal lining. Potential causes, bacterial infection, H. pylori is one of the more common ones. Anti-inflammatory drugs, think things like aspirin or ibuprofen, as well as excessive gastric acid secretion. Ulcer treatment regimen will depend on the cause. For example, if you have H. pylori, you might need antibiotics. If it's a medication issue, you'd want to stop taking those medications, those aspirin or ibuprofen. So here are strategies to prevent or alleviate common GI problems. I won't read these off to you, but you can take the time to go over them. So choking, diarrhea, constipation, belching, and intestinal gas. And this is a continuation of that slide, and it addresses heartburn and ulcer. So this pretty much concludes chapter 3. Thank you.